all aboard.
Hey, what's up, everybody? You're listening to Cannabis Karaoke, where we ask you to grab the mic and tell your story. Get inside info from today's most interesting cannabis pioneers, and from the first note to the end of the song, listen up as you get to hear the stories of success on Cannabis Karaoke. Welcome to another episode of Cannabis Karaoke. I'm your host, Danny Keith, and, we get to interview some crazy thought leaders, people that made an impression in the cannabis space. This gentleman, I'm actually going to play a little clip. So hopefully it comes out okay, because I'm sometimes technologically challenged when it comes to my podcast. But I'm going to let this do the introduction, and then we'll jump in. So just bear with me.
What's your favorite strain you would bring back that you don't see no more?
Champelli.
Champelli. I've heard that from a lot of people.
Champelli. That was a real first strain to blow up the Bay Area. That was like our first kush. Yeah, that was that Champelli. So I wish that Pelli come back. That shit was crazy. Only real OGs. If you've been smoking since the 80s and 90s, you know about that, man.
We're gonna research that, man.
That part. Take a dab of that.
Yeah. What you got, Pelli? Yeah, we got Pelli. Oh, what? It's on me? No, eat Pelli, please. Oh, what?
In the late 90s, one of my best friends from high school, Joe Pelli, created a type of cannabis that became one of the most elusive and sought-out strains here in the Bay Area. It was revered by cannabis connoisseurs, rappers, and pretty much the entire West Coast underground rap scene.
Was here, my nigga. Before I knew my nigga Francis was here, I was at the telly. Then he came through this motherfucker with a bag of Champelli. He put it in the A, said, doggy, would you tell me? I got a bad bitch with an earring in her belly. I said, it's cool, my nigga. Let's keep it on the under, no need.
The strain was immortalized in the lyrics and lifestyles of artists like Snoop Dogg, B Real from Cypress Hill, Yukmouth from the Loonies, E40, Memphis Bleek, Beanie Sigel, Freeway, The Jacker, and of course, one of its biggest fans, the late great Mac Dre.
Only sees me, Champelli tree. She only sees me, Champelli tree. She only sees me, Champelli tree. She only sees me, Champelli tree.
We call it cat piss, because it had that real, sour diesel type of stank to it, but it had that kush power.
Yeah, nice little, a little fruity flavor, but it had boom,
that power. So, yeah, that was that Champelli.
The strain disappeared when Pelli had to disappear and leave the country due to some legal issues tied to the war on weed. After a decade on the run, he thought the case was dead, but he returned to the U.S. a little too early and had to serve time.
Water, what you say about Pelli? You in Hawaii or something one time? I was all over the place. What kind of haircut?
This boy Champelli got a good boy haircut. Champelli got a good boy haircut. Pelli got a good boy haircut. Pelli got a good boy haircut.
Now that a new legal era is upon us with the weed game, the time is right to try and resurrect Champelli. His fate rests in the remaining 20 seeds saved by its creator before he fled. Will Champelli return? Pray for Champelli.
Dude, welcome to the mic, Mr. AKA Champelli, dude. I don't know how that came out, but that shit gives me chills, dude, when I see stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit about what you put that out in January, that little teaser clip. How's the industry been responding to you, bro?
Man, well, once again, I'd like to just say thank you, Danny, for bringing me on your podcast, man. This is great. Thank you for reaching out, and I really appreciate the love. And, so far, it's really been a great reception from everybody. It's been great. People have been kind of open arms as far as just trying to receive me into what is the new kind of wave and era of the legal cannabis goes, so to speak, So overall, it's been great, great reception back into the legal cannabis game. And, so I'm pretty happy about it overall. I'm just trying to everybody's kind of reached out and offering different resources, and I'm just kind of trying to piece together all the pieces of the puzzle there, and take advantage of some of the people that have reached out and come to the table with different opportunities and resources and stuff like that.
They say, if you're a listener, how's the best word? I mean, if you're a aficionado of the hip hop game and you didn't recognize the Champelli, that's something you got it quoted here on your YouTube thing, which I totally back, the greatest comeback in cannabis history. Talk to me a little bit about how Champelli, that strain, like just influenced rappers so heavily, and like really kind of, you know, back in the day, that like it was like if you had the Pelli, dog, you were fucking golden. It was hard to get a hold of. It wasn't easy. And now we're talking about bringing that strain back to the masses. What, like, how do you feel about that? And like, how did it even come to be that you were the dude? I mean, we talked a little bit off the air a little bit. You're into music. You don't just do the cannabis thing. So I'd like to hear a little bit of a more well-rounded story about your kind of introduction into music, maybe, and then also like how that strain wove its way in and kind of created this like interesting cement in the hip hop world.
Yeah. So great questions there. And, yeah, I mean, I'll start kind of back in where my roots kind of lay as far as in this cannabis space in general, just kind of lie. And it kind of comes it's kind of a family thing, to be honest. Rest in peace. My brother was kind of deep in the old school cannabis game, you know, when it used to be more of a gentleman's game, and it was just a whole nother game.
I like that reference to gentleman's game.
Yeah, it was more of a gentleman's game.
Yeah, because if you fucked up.
Not a fuck boy game,
right?
It is now, kind of just to use the term of like kind of where it's kind of now, you know, as far as just, you know, kind of way more cutthroat and so forth, you know. So I kind of grew up really old school, kind of smugglers, you know, sort of
champion of the plant, a little bit of outlaw.
Yeah, you know, and then champion of the plant, and really believing in cannabis and what it, you know, and its medicinal properties and what it really stands for and what it does for people in general, you know, as far as anywhere from, you know, health benefits, mental benefits, you know, even financial benefits, and then its spiritual powers of what, you know, how it really can help you manifest some of your dreams and stuff like that. It's definitely a powerful plant, you know. So I kind of grew up around cannabis. My brother, basically, he had a coffee shop in the 70s in Amsterdam at one point called the Branderij. And I mean, you know, so I kind of grew up around a lot of legendary stories and hearing about a bunch of different crazy old school, you know, smuggler stuff and stuff like that. And so, you know, so that was kind of like my introduction as a child, just being around that. Some of my earliest memories were like of music, also coming back to music. Some of my earliest memories were like Bob Marley playing and, you know, black Lebanese hash kind of floating around in the air, you know, in Amsterdam when I was there in the 70s visiting my brother. And, you know, walking into a closet there and seeing bales and bales of 10-kilo bales of black Lebanese hash just stacked to the ceiling and in this closet, you know, and I kind of still remember that. And then, you know, Bob Marley's Steer It Up was playing in the background. So that's kind of like my earliest kind of formative memories there of kind of, you know, as far as the cannabis thing goes, you know, so it's interesting. And then later on, I went on to grow basically in my mom's kitchen pantry, which was like kind of it was kind of lit, almost like a greenhouse thing, had opaque glass over it where she had all her spices and dishes, and, you know, the cats lived out there, and there was light in there. So I basically got some seeds from some weed that I had bought at one point, and this is in the 80s. We're talking like 87, 88, basically, when I first started, pretty much like 87, when I first kind of planted my first seeds and grew some of the best stuff, you know. I mean, really amazing stuff. It was interesting because these phenos were totally different than, you know, anything that's around now. Throughout those early days, like, I saw so many different flavors and so much interesting cannabis at that point that was just, you know, is pretty much wiped off of the face of the earth just because nobody had the foresight of continuing, you know, the genetics. Stuff got lost because people just, you know, it was still a guerrilla illegal thing. So people were kind of just you know, it was just like people would grow one season and then that would be it. You know, if you didn't have the foresight to maybe try to keep some clones or make some seeds, it was like, whoop, there it's gone. You know, one more strain that was kind of lost, you know. So I was kind of blessed to see all these different early crazy strains when it was really kind of the peak of, you know, the height of like the cannabis kind of movement as far as like really interesting strains, you know, where it went from just really kind of stringy sativa stuff, you know, and just, you know, dating back to the 70s and 60s where, you know, it was just more swaggy. I was kind of in the 80s seeing like more indicas coming in and more potent stuff and more stuff that had been developed and hybrided and also just actually, you know, curated from people and stuff that was coming from, you know, other parts of the world and to San Francisco and California in general, which was kind of like the mecca of the cannabis world at that time in a way, you know, as far as I could tell. You know, I mean, I traveled in the early 90s to Amsterdam and I traveled, you know, I did my fair share of traveling and always came back to San Francisco as always having in California is having always the best weed. Like in the early 90s, I went to Amsterdam. I went to every shop looking for good weed. And, you know, I couldn't find anything everything paled in comparison to what I could find in San Francisco in my own backyard, you know? So it's interesting how San Francisco has always been like, you know, whether it's technology, whether it's film, whether it's music, the Bay Area has always been an innovative place for creatives and, you know, innovation in general, you know, so the Bay Area is a real, I have to basically give credit to the Bay Area and San Francisco as a big inspiration and in my life and just, you know, affected, you know, the outcome of, you know, history in a way, you know, I mean, the history of the world has been affected by, you know, the United States, obviously, but California and San Francisco and the Bay Area, whether it's music and entertainment and so on and so forth. Cannabis, once again, also some of the biggest name brands of cannabis come out of the Bay Area and strains and stuff like that.
You, you did so, you know, being that you've been, how do I put this? You definitely took a moment. I mean, I'm family friends with Tommy Chong, and after he did his prison sentence, he kind of laid low and was, I don't want to say anti-plant, but it's like, fuck, I'm not going to do that again, you know, kind of thing. And you kind of had the same shit go down with you where, you know, again, we were all outlaws. I never really grew. I was just moving packs, but like guys like you were who we needed. And, you know, luckily, aside from a couple close scrapes, I never really got in any big trouble for it. But guys like you know, you bailed the country, you came back, you kind of slicked back in thinking everything was cool, and they still got you, dude, after like tens of years out of the country. And then you did your time. And then what made you decide that, fuck it, I'm going to get back in the game? Because, dude, it's been a minute. And now, like, you worked with some heavies back in the day. You know what I mean? And I tend to think that all happened organically because someone like yourself, from what, you know, the little bit of research I've done on you, you know, it just happens, just kind of one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and things just keep rolling out. When you decided to bounce, like you were basically, I'm peeling off some of the stuff from the Mary Jane article that you just did not too long ago. And you went to Europe. You said, fuck it, I'm out. Like I'm going to split. When you did that, like, did you stop smoking weed? Did you stop growing weed? Like, what was the deal while you were kind of avoiding?
So I had, you know, basically I was, just to give a little backstory there, basically in the, you know, in the late 90s, you know, I had a record company, which was basically titled after the strain and, you know, and after myself, basically. I always had this weed from like 94, 95 on till the early 2000s. I always had the Champelli. So basically the streets called me Champelli. I called my record label Champelli. You know, and the strain itself was called Champelli, you know what I mean? And basically, yeah, I was, you know, around, you know, some rough types, so to speak, that it kind of, a RICO case basically ended up affecting me. I was just around in the circle, kind of guilty by association. And I was always just a weed guy and the music guy. Never any violence or no craziness, you know what I mean? I was just always kind of the humble weed dude, basically urban kind of hippie, so to speak. You know, I was into music and hip hop since I grew up in the city, and I pretty much associated with everybody in the San Francisco. It was kind of like San Francisco is kind of that way. You know, I went to public schools. I grew up with Samoans, Mexicans, blacks, you name it, Chinese, Filipinos, like those were all my people. I was just kind of the one white boy that was in the mix, so to speak. So,
I'm not gonna lie, dude. When like you check out, just like you look at the picture, like, dude, this dude looks nothing like the dude that would be growing Champelli. You know what I mean? Or that, or that would be fucking with Mac Dre or any of these dudes. Like,
yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of an unassuming sort of, humble kind of guy. I don't really, and I don't pretend to be anything. I don't, or try to flex anything. It's just, it is what it is. I just like to be myself through thick and thin, ups and downs. I always try to have like a consistency to myself and just keep it real. You know what I mean? And, so basically I got alerted by a friend of mine had a girlfriend that was a lawyer at that time. And I used to sell him weed back in the day. And
so
basically,
funny.
Yeah, and I'd gone down to pay a traffic ticket at the Hall of Justice here in San Francisco, and I was in the elevator with her, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And she basically tells me, "Hey, your name came up in some heavy circles right now. I was just in a thing. If you can, I recommend you pack it up and leave the country now." Is basically what she told me. And here I was, like, just had I had my record label going. It just dropped San Quinn, the Mighty Quinn. I'd done another project, had a bunch of different music projects I was getting ready to drop. Doobie, I was working with Mac Dre. I was working with all, even Snoop Dogg and a bunch of different stuff at this time. And I just built a music studio in San Francisco, and everything was kind of going, pretty well.
You were on the up, and then you got
I was on the up,
kicked in the balls.
Tons of old school cars, convertible Chevys, all the toys and all the shit, you know what I mean? And so I had to pretty much kind of pick it up, pack it in, and basically just leave at a moment's notice. So pretty much I kind of just gathered up what I could financially, sold cars, did whatever I did, kind of, delegated some stuff off to some friends, and then basically, was like, "Hey, I'm out." You know what I mean? So I just had
people tripping?
A lot of people, everybody's like, "What? You're just, gonna up and go?" And I mean, this is, I grew up in San Francisco, and my whole community and all my whole life was there. Had a girlfriend at the time, and it's a place where I'd kind of built my life, so to speak, at that moment, and so for me to kind of just uproot everything and just move out of the country, it was a pretty drastic move, so to speak, you know what I mean?
That's heavy.
So, so I kind of packed it in and basically went to Amsterdam, you know what I mean? I actually went to Amsterdam, of all places.
And just chilled out for a decade?
Yeah, well, I wasn't in Amsterdam the whole time. Amsterdam, I did, a few years there in Amsterdam, and I have some good friends over there. And but Amsterdam was a bit cold for me, and a bit, and Europe is different over there. It's not quite as friendly to the entrepreneurial spirit in a way. It's like a little more controlled, a little more old school in the sense of like there's more pecking order, and it's different over there, so it's not quite as easy. And just like moving anywhere new to start a life, it's like it takes 5 years to even really get a life going anywhere once you make kind of a fresh move, so it was a little bit tough for me. But I went to Switzerland, actually, where at that point in Ticino, it was actually kind of like decriminalized, cannabis was at that time, and people were just growing fields and fields of weed. And it was like, man, so I just landed there. I had some friends that were growing there, and I got in and did some growing and did some trimming and just networked there and have some crazy stories from Switzerland. And basically they ended up shutting it down in Ticino. The rest of the other provinces of Switzerland, which were Ticino's more the Italian province closer to Italy, and then there's the French kind of province of Switzerland and the German province, and they're a little more conservative, and they kind of basically put the pinch on the southern province, which was the Italian one, Ticino and that sort of area, and then basically stopped all the cannabis growing. But there was like, I mean, literally, you would drive down the road and there'd be 25,000 plants to, you know, I mean, it was like, I'd never seen anything like it in, you know, my time in the woods. Like, I mean, it was like unreal the amount of cannabis that was being grown there, you know. So it was this little crazy little window that only lasted a year or two there, but I got to be a part of that, which was pretty epic cannabis history. And there was a few guys, you know, few big high times growers down there. One guy who had done this guy Scott, this Australian guy who had developed the white shark and won some cups with that. He was down there and he was just growing huge. And it was interesting times. So I did that for a little bit, and then I actually went to Spain, is where I spent most of the time, because I was actually born in Spain, in Malaga. So I actually went there and met back up with like old school friends from when I was like in, you know, elementary school. I'd actually gone over. My father lived in Spain, and my mom lived in San Francisco. They had separated, so I kind of had always gone back and forth. And basically, Spain is another great, I mean, where it's on the same latitude and longitude as California. So as far as growing goes, it was amazing. So I got to do some really great growing over in Spain and explore that whole aspect. So I kind of still kept the growing going and a little bit of moving and shaking, but I was also trying to pursue my music stuff. Music is like, you know, obviously cannabis is my passion, but music is like, you know, my life's work and passion as well there too. So I kind of still try to pursue my music production and doing that and approaching big, you know, I mostly do like pop and hip hop and stuff like that. So when big American artists would come to Europe, I would approach them there and try to get like placements, you know, try to get some of my music placed. Like I met up with Britney Spears when she was in Europe, Pharrell, Snoop Dogg, you know, the Black Eyed Peas, like, you know, Pharoah Monch, Kanye West, like all these different big artists that would come through town, and like Amsterdam, I would end up meeting up with them and trying to network and stuff like that. So I still try to keep my music dream go alive while I was overseas, you know.
So heavy when you look back, and I'm sure you can, you know, comment to this, but you know, here you were on the run. More or less. I mean, you were avoiding, you know, prison at the time, and I don't know if that helped you or hurt you. It looks like you caught 6 months at the end of the day, but the fact that you kept playing in the space, these are the stories that people need to hear, because like we talked about off the air a little bit, the whole fuckboy movement with the people and maybe we said that on the air already, but it's like you have all these people, the same fuckers that were putting guys like you in jail or going after you are now in the game. And it's got to be surreal for you, man, because I'm certain in hearing your story that music is your love. And then the weed came along with it because it seems like it's always kind of been the fabric of what you've been around. And you, just like in your music endeavors, you nailed off a hit in the cannabis world and people were loving it. You can't, dude. I mean, it's not like I've ran with any of these dudes, but I've smoked weed with a few of them, like, you know, Be Real and those guys, Kenji, those guys are the boys. Those, you know, to get them, it's not easy in the weed game. It ain't like Coca-Cola, man. If someone's latching onto your strain or they're throwing shouts, it's because you got the fire. And, you know, being that you were doubling down on that and you like you said, you were just coming into your stride to then be like, yo, you got to bounce. Like, that's got to be somewhat devastating. I mean, like, you're talking about a 20-year pause on kind of your vision of what your life should be. Most people just would, like, take a different path, man. Instead, you kind of fucking put them shoes back on and decided to run right back into the race. And like we were saying earlier, too, it's a different game now because now there's money, now there's this, and now there's that. Now you got to make sure you're true. And, you know, when these articles started coming out on you again and people started talking about it, dude, there was a buzz, bro. I mean, that's why I reached out. I was like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, this guy, is it really happening? You're one of those rare exceptions where you're going to come back, I think, and be just as as long as you, like, I know you will make the right moves to partner with the right people. How does that feel after, like, I mean, when I talked to Tommy, I interviewed Tommy at the Emerald Cup, and I've known him forever, so I know the stories, but just hearing him tell the story of when he was in jail and kind of going through those moments, some people don't, that jail stint tends to change them. They like either find religion or like realize that they were a bad person. It doesn't seem like that impacted you in that fashion, but I know that it had to give some impact to how you're coming out now. Like, what did that, 6 months, and most people are like, oh, that's not a big deal, but people can't even be quarantined for 3 weeks without losing their shit.
Yeah. So, as far as like, first of all, I was kind of removed from my whole life for, 10 years practically, just being essentially, obviously I had my somewhat freedom. So I was out in the world, which was, at the time, if I would have stayed, I would have been facing probably, who knows what they would have tried to like, basically, strong arm me to take, like, hey, you got to tell on, because I was kind of associated with the main guy that was in the RICO case. So they would have been like, hey, you need to take, you're going to either get 40 years or you're going to tell on this guy, you know what I mean? Or something, you know what I mean? So, and that's how kind of the feds work. So I managed to like kind of get out of that, basically dodge that bullet by not being here, which was a total blessing. So I had my freedom and I was overseas. But at the same time, I lost a lot of traction and momentum and stuff that I had, but I had freedom, so it was a blessing. You know what I mean? I was like, man, I'd rather eat sand crabs on the beach, with nothing and coconuts than be in a jail cell. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So I managed to kind of dodge that, and then coming back, I got 6 months because that was all I was basically. That was all. When I came back, they're like, we don't really need this guy. Everybody's been charged. The case is all done. Everybody's done. Like, as far as that goes. So they're like, well, what do we do with him? Offer him 6 months. The judge is like, well, I think this is lenient, 6 months or whatever. And it was like conspiracy to distribute cannabis charge. You know what I mean? That's the bare minimum is 6 months they can give you. And I felt like, in a way, I'm like, this is still fucked for me because I was just coming back to the United States. I mean, as a person and my life and everything, I'm in a totally different space. It's been 10 years and I'm just trying to move on with my life. You know what I mean? So then I had to go back and go in time basically and go to jail. You know what I mean? After 10 years, like, whoa. And it's like hitting a dog after, so to speak, after he's peed, 10 years later, like, hey, you know what I mean? You're whacking the dog later. And he's like, what the hell is this? So it kind of set me back a little bit. It was kind of like, oh, now I got to go to jail. Now it's like, now I have a felony. Now I'm on 3 years probation. I got to stay in one place. I can't fucking do anything with cannabis, this and that. So it was kind of like, and, and I got a taste of 6 months seemed like 6 years to me. And and I really feel like, it's like, freedom and, cannabis law and prison reform and prisoners' rights and, and legalizing cannabis, all this stuff is like, I really hold it close to my heart and it really means a lot to me because I've been through it all, and I know what it is like to be a prisoner. Right now, I really, feel for these prisoners that are in jail. I'd like to highlight and mention these prisoners that are in jail right now with COVID-19 with, all boxed in there together and there's no rights, there's no protection for them, there's no nothing. They're just basically left in there to die is what they're hoping they do, so they can just move some new prisoners in, you know what I mean? And a lot of them are just low-level criminals, simple things. Now you're stuck in there with the COVID-19, so it's just like, it's, I really, that's a big part of my heart is like freedom and just actual justice, for, whether it's the earth, whether it's the environment, whether it's prisoners' rights, whether it's cannabis or it's animals, I just really have a strong tie in my heart towards like justice and what's right, I guess I can thank my parents, my mom or whatever, but, yeah, so, I mean, so coming back, I basically did my 3 years of probation and then I kind of got back into growing, tried to, basically I did a little bit of I did some light DAP and some full term growing, in 2014 and 15. And it was still kind of, things were, the legal market was just kind of really emerging, as far as like big time legal market. And I'm still kind of, old school. I'm a paranoid guy, you know what I mean? I'm still on the black market. So I'm like, everybody's like telling me, oh man, you should bring back the Champelli, this and that. And I kind of had hesitance of doing that just because of like, all right, well, this brand was attached to all this stuff that, kind of went down in my legal case and all this and that, but I have so much history behind it. And once I started digging in and, looking into bringing the brand back, it's like, man, it's like, really, I built all this stuff. And I mean, music and cannabis really is my life's work, so far up to this point. And I mean, I have other passions. I love to cook. I'm an artist. I love to paint. I mean, I write songs. All this stuff. So I'm just an artistic sort of guy that wants to be creative and bring my talents to the world and find a way to monetize and be able to survive and provide for myself and by the same time do my thing. So I'm like, hey, I just decided after kind of taking a break of the growing and stuff like that in 2015, after 2014 and 15, I kind of took kind of a little bit of a hiatus, made a little bit of money. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to chill out because it can be stressful trying to do, big grows. You're managing people, you're doing all this, and I was the one who's doing everything. So it's like a bit stressful there. So I'm like, and I basically took those years to kind of refocus on my video production, in photography. I also love photography. So I kind of just honed my skills with my photography, honed my direction skills with the video, also was working on my music. So it's like I was pouring all my energies into the creative things and the life I wanted to create, to kind of create like a new life for myself of, positive stuff and stuff I really enjoy doing and want to do, including cannabis, but just, I just kind of want to be able to do it in a way that's not stressful for me. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
then,
man. I mean, you do time and that shit creates a little bit of a PTSD thumbtack in your brain.
Yeah, I'm basically PTSD'd out because I looked for years and years. I mean, I've done this since I was, 12 years old or whatever. So I am PTSD'd out. I mean, all I ever did was look over my shoulder
right.
and worry, not take photos back then. Right. I was just totally on the low, you know what I mean?
Could you imagine if we would have had social media back then and you were puffing? God, right? Fuck, they'd have wrapped you up so fast.
I know. So I decided to just kind of say fuck it and bring the brand back. I'm like, hey man, I got all this stuff sitting there. I'm sitting on hundreds of songs that I never got to release from my record label. So I have all this history in a sense of this kind of time vault of all this music. I've got photos, I've got videos, and not to mention I have genetics also. So it's like this unique kind of situation that can't be replicated of just, original content from genetics to music to even some visual stuff, you know what I mean? And so then I said, all right, well, I'm just going to bring it back. And so, 2018, late 17, I started just kind of putting in sweat equity into my brand. So the last couple of years, I've just been kind of just building it up and putting sweat equity into it myself, because right now it's like your name and your brand is kind of where the value is. So it's like right now, I've just been pouring my sweat equity into the brand, essentially, knowing that that's where the value is going to be, and seeing all these big, corporate players and all these people who spent millions and billions of dollars on cannabis brands that have just totally failed. You know what I mean?
Well, because everybody's just nobody's paying it. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to mention the fact on how it's such a great time to be talking about strains and landrace strains and genetics, because it is true, man. Most of the industry just is popping the same shit and putting a different name on it.
If there's no substance, you know what I mean? In a corporate thing, it's like styro weed, we used to call it back in the day. It was like styrofoam weed or just styrofoam brand in a sense. It's just, there's no substance, no realness to it. So I just want to bring, something that's real and tangible. I have a real story. I have a real passion and a real, a purpose here. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be basically, and it's full circle, essentially. I'm trying to be, rescue the princess and slay the dragon, essentially here. I've been through, I've been through the flames, you know, I've suffered, I've been, you know, through depression, through poverty, you know, running from the police, you know, all this shit.
Now it's a
I've had to
movie,
go
dude.
through. Yeah, it's a full-on movie, honestly. And then to come back now and to try to, you know, claim my place, you know, in this space right now, essentially. And, you know, everything right now is about a brand, essentially. You need to really have a strong brand presence in something. And I have, like, the value in my brand is, like, value that people can't even buy. You know, it's like you could have $1 million and you'd have to, the big corporate brand would have to give Snoop $1 million to mention their strain, you know, whereas I have that love from him and other artists that I can come in and, you know, they're going to bless me with, you know, a big shout out and it's all going to be love. You know what I mean? So that's a lot. That's like actual value that has been.
No, you can't buy that. You can't buy that at all.
You can't buy that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like real stuff. It's people's, you know, it's a lifetime of building, you know, yourself and your brand and putting in that work in this community, essentially in space, you know. So I'm kind of here to just, you know, not even cash in on it. That's not my idea. It's like not everything is just about financial. It's also about personal fulfillment and growth and like being validated by your community and your peers and having a purpose. And I ultimately want to make a difference. Is what I want to do in this space. It's not all about, you know, making money, which obviously, I mean, we need that. But I mean, I want to come and, you know, try to bring light to prisoner reform, you know, and
are you working with who are you working with on that? There's a couple organizations out there.
Yeah, there's a few different people. What are they?
There's Weldon Angelos is doing Mission Green.
Yeah, the one that Stephen DeAngelos is working. That's one.
So Weldon's doing Mission Green is focusing on federal
I saw Weldon. Yeah,
federal prison reform.
Right there.
And then Steve.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say Steve DeAngelo's with Last Prisoner Project is working on doing the state stuff.
Project, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I have a friend who's in prison for life. He's been in there for damn near 30 years in Florida. Richard DeLisi. He's in Florida there. He's been in there for life, and I kind of put that case in front of the Last Prisoner Project, and they did a post on their Instagram. And, you know, I'm just finding little small ways to bring, you know, light to little situations like that. And I want to get involved more, you know, wherever I can. So I'm totally open to, you know, helping out and putting energy and using whatever my platform and voice, you know, to help out wherever I can on those things. And hopefully once we kind of get going more with the brand and there's more, you know, money involved, then I can actually throw some more financing towards, you know, helping out on those kind of things.
The voice, I think, is the biggest form of currency that can be provided, because unfortunately we have to convince a bunch of legislators that if we're going to have a legal market, then we've got to have some reparation on the people that were building the illegal market to cause awareness to create a legal market. They shouldn't, if they're doing there for just cannabis related crimes, they, you know, and it's just like Weldon's story. I interviewed him and dude caught 55 years, bro, for $900 of the weed. You know,
That's
it's like
crazy.
55 years, bro. Like people go on mass murder, you know, dismember and eat the bodies and catch 10, you know, and it's like, here's this,
Well,
did 55.
And so that's where, you know, and that's what's going on now is, I mean, even now there's all these people that are still in jail for this plant in all these different states. And, you know, people are making money over hand over fist right now still. And not only that is people are still getting prosecuted for this thing, you know what I mean, for this plant. Like, hey, you know, you drive 10 pounds across state lines. Now
Don't drive across Kansas with that shit.
You know what I mean? And it's just, it needs to be re-examined as far as like what the, you know, the proportion of these things, like what it should really be. It's like, hey, it's just a plan. It's not that serious. Give them a ticket, you know, make him pay his taxes on it, whatever, but don't give him, you know, some ridiculous, you know, perpetuate this drug war and, you know, and the whole, you know, prison complex, you know, they're still using it. You know what I mean? It's still a drug war is still going on, and it's being ramped up here in California again from the tax dollars from the legal market. You know what I mean? So, and people need to basically, there's a responsibility, I feel, for businesses and people that are involved in the legal market to give back and make sure, obviously they're like, hey, well, our money and our tax dollars going towards funding, shutting down the black market. That's all fine and dandy, but here you are at the same time perpetuating, the same thing you might have been against, 10 years ago, but now that you're making money off it, you don't say anything, So it's one of those things like people, should have, there should be more, a way for people to help if they want to, you know what I mean? So people like, maybe you do want to give back. Maybe there should be more people should create, like the Last Prisoner Project. And
I think
things to raise awareness.
100%. 100%. I think if you're in the cannabis game right now and part of your business isn't cause marketing to pay it backward, if that's even the right term, to like help out people that were champions of the game, and that were running packs and making sure that this industry could get, like, none of that shit, none of where we're at right now would be happening if those people hadn't taken those risks. And it's astounding to me that I see this big money pouring in. I mean, it's the worst meetings you have are the ones that they sit around, they say, well, I don't even, I don't partake, but I believe in the plant. You're like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, give me a fucking break. You're smoking the weed, dude. You either smoke the weed or I ain't taking your money. And so, I just think that it's
just recognizing, like you say, paying forward, paying back, as far as like recognizing the, also like you say, recognizing the original players and people that actually, built the space for the whole legal thing to happen, essentially. You know what I mean? I used to actually sell cannabis to Dennis Perrone before he did his whole 215 thing. I'd go over to his Victorian, there, and drop off packs, and then once he did open his first place down on Church and Market, I'd go over there too and visit him, and rest in peace, Dennis Perrone, and all these other people that have kind of paved the way for this legal market to even be happening and occur, essentially, So
well, if nobody's ever shouted a thank you out to you, I'd say thank you for taking it on the head, being a pioneer, interlacing it with some amazing music, and then catching a stupid charge at the back end of it, but still wanting to kind of jump back in. I think that deserves some accolades and some appreciation, because most people would just say fuck it and go sell shoes or something, and just be over it.
I appreciate it, man. And I mean, I'd like to shout out all the unsung heroes too that, their voices are muted right now because they're in prison or they're dead or whatever, that also were, this whole thing has been built for, years and years, dating back to even before I was involved, in the 70s and 60s. And I mean, all those, everybody's kind of played their part in this whole cannabis thing. So everybody that's kind of, been in the space somehow or some way has basically contributed to where we are today. So, it's only right that we look out for those that don't have a voice, that need, as far as equity goes, the equity, applicants and stuff that cities are doing to try to get people involved, underprivileged, or people who have been prosecuted over the years unjustly, whether it's minorities.
But then that gets all dirty, man. Like, you saw what happened in LA. They jumped out that social equity program, and then 3 of their council members get busted for taking kickbacks on it. It's like, people just can't. People just got to stop being greedy and just do work. And it's funny, like, those people are not going to catch the same charge. Like, those people should almost be prosecuted more, because they exploited a situation, and all you were doing was doing what's actually natural. What's good for Champelli? What's the next steps? When are we going to see do you have any movement happening? What do people, I want to give you a chance to kind of list out your websites, your social media, and then I'm hoping that this is one of many interviews as you progress down the road. And listen, man, I live down in Santa Cruz, like we talked about, and, we've been blessed with having great weed around here too. In fact, like, it's always been part of my life. And, to see how it is in other areas is kind of, whoa, like, it's not like that for us. I'm here to help, man. I'm going to, I want to talk about some things after we get off of this where we can maybe play around together and just want to give you that chance to acknowledge, where people can find you and let them know what's next for Champelli.
Yeah, so right now I'm kind of this past year has just been like ongoing meetings, like a ton of meetings with some of the biggest players right now in the game, the legal market, and so a ton of meetings with people like that and other smaller cultivators and distributors and just people that are licensed. And it's just kind of taking some time to kind of weed through to figure out who I actually want to be in a relationship with. You know what I mean? As far as a working relationship goes, like I said, not everything is about the money. I kind of want to be in a situation with people that we see eye to eye and share some of the same, stuff there. So it's kind of, it's taking time to really find the right people. I don't want to rush into anything with anybody unless it's just, I feel like, oh, this is great. We have a great synergy together. This is going to be amazing. Somebody who really sees the vision and believes in it and isn't afraid to, to actually, come to the table with the right stuff, So I've been approaching, looking for, whether it's an angel investor or whether it's somebody who actually has licenses and facilities and who's already vertically integrated, who can offer a situation like that and sees the value of an actual brand, because a lot of these people, they have everything but the brand. They have everything but the voice to the public or somebody who could actually be, a face of a brand and really have a notoriety or actually be validated in this space. So right now I'm basically just been reaching out, talking. I kind of took a break from talking to all the big corporate players. I've just been focusing on basically finding partners to do white label stuff with, you know what I mean? And then I'm currently doing R&D on my own genetics and getting ready, which takes some time. So everything kind of takes time. So, but I'm going to be coming to the table with a bunch of different new genetics, old and new. So some landrace stuff that's going to be pure, obviously some hybrids and crosses that we have. And, getting ready to just bring something new. My goal is to kind of bring some new flavors to the space, since everything is kind of monocropped now and all kind of the same thing, like maybe a big smoothie, and I'm not taking anything away from what's going on now. There's some amazing strains and stuff being created, and there's some great stuff. But by the same token, I mean, I used to smoke stuff in the 80s that would pretty much blow anything away right now. I would take it any day over what I used to smoke, which is for people nowadays that weren't there at that time are like, no ways, what do you mean? I mean, this, that. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like full-bodied, complete, cannabis, flavor, punch, expansion, high, everything, and just the flavors, and you know what I mean? So,
well, no, everybody's gotten so caught up in THC percentages and other things that
it's all, I'm really all about the terpene profile. So basically, right now, that's what I'm basically going to be doing, is just working with smaller, essentially, people, cultivators who have their licenses, a couple key distributors, and start to get some white label stuff into the market. Because obviously, as Champelli, I want to have a bunch of different flavors, even stuff that's out there now, basically a bunch of different flavors to introduce to the market. And then also start to introduce my own, once I'm done with my R&D, is start to introduce a bunch of my own flavors in as well. So it's not just going to be the Champelli. It will also be other stuff. So people can expect a lot of different flavors and variety from us, because obviously variety is the spice of life. And I like smoking all types of different and medicating with all types of different flavors and stuff like that. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm just open a conversation with the right people as far as partnerships go, and working with the right people is what I'm just trying to do. It takes a while to find the right situation, but I'm starting to narrow it all down finally to some good situations. So it's coming together. It's taken some time, but it's coming together.
So if they want to follow you on Instagram, it's just Instagram Champelli, and that's
at Champelli 415. The number is 415 Champelli 415, and then also you can check out my website where we got some clothing and stuff like that. It's champelli.co. So CHAMPELLI.co is where you can find merchandise. And pretty soon we'll have more stuff up there. We'll have like more music and stuff like that as well.
Well, dude, thank you for chopping it up. It's been a history lesson for me to listen to what you went through, and you know, your passion definitely bleeds through. I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to come back swinging hard. And, you know, I was thinking about a quote. I was thinking, you might have been gone, dog, but your chair's just been sitting there. They just need to dust it off so you can take a seat at the table and show what you're really all about. And I'm gonna, you know, after we jump off this, I want to spend a couple moments talking about, you know, where I can help out, or if at all, other than just making sure we're echoing your story. And really, really, really appreciate you coming on board and giving me some time. And I will make sure when we do this blog post that I'll put all those links in there so people can find you. But once again, man, thank you for doing what you've done, and thank you for being willing to talk about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing your success come here in the near future.
Man, thank you so much, Danny. Thank you. I appreciate you so much for giving me the platform there and the time to talk a little bit about my story there. And really, really appreciate it. You got a great thing going there. Keep doing the great work that you're doing. I'm loving all your different podcasts. Was checking them out the other day. Amazing stuff there. Amazing work. And truly appreciate you. Stay safe in these times and healthy. And stay tuned for Champelli.
That's a wrap. Thank you for listening to this edition of Cannabis Karaoke, another kick-ass podcast about all things cannabis. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and our website, cannabiskaraoke.tv. And if you or someone you know would like to be on the show, please hit the book your interview button on the right. Cannabis Karaoke. Grab the mic and tell your story.